before I would 3-bet in a spot like this, I would want either a slightly worse hand or a slightly better hand than this. So I do decide to just call. And the flop comes and gives me top and bottom pair. And obviously that's a great flop for us. But it's also a pretty dangerous flop for us. If we were to get a lot of action here, I think that, and there's a lot of cards that can come off on the turn or the river that could be potential scare cards for us in this spot. What happens is our opponent checks. Now, this is an interesting spot here simply because when he checks here, I generally don't expect him to have a very strong hand. I would expect most tags here, if they were to say have flopped a straight or 2-pair or a set, for example, that they would go ahead and bet here for the most part. So when he checks, I just expect that he's normally either giving up or that he only hit a part of this flop and he's just trying to pot control here. So I'm of course going to bet here. I'm not going to slow play this. I've got 2-pair. I don't want to see a lot of those scare cards come off just yet. So I definitely want to bet this for value, and I do. And I bet 2/3 pot. What happens is our opponent actually calls. Now I find that interesting because you don't see this type of line too often from tags in this spot, unless some very specific things are going on. First of all, I didn't have a lot of history with this opponent. As you can see, only 190 hands. So I don't really expect him to be getting especially tricky here. I really don't think he would slow play a really huge hand here and take this sort of line. And so immediately when I see this type of line, I'm starting to think that he does not have an incredibly strong hand, maybe a bluff catcher type hand, maybe an ace-queen, or a hand like that, maybe even like a 10-jack type hand, although I generally would expect a hand like 10-jack to bet here. I honestly don't think he would have a flush draw. Immediately don't think he has a flush draw here because in general most people would lead with any sort of flush draw. I don't care if it was 4-5 of clubs of green, they would generally lead here with a flush draw. So when he takes that line, I immediately think that his most likely holding is maybe some sort of bluff catcher type hand. On the turn comes a 9. Obviously not a great card. A hand like 10-jack would have gotten there. And what happens is he does check again. So I still think that I have the best hand here a decent amount of the time here. So I still think that we should bet here. The board got worse, but I do think that there's some value to be had here. If he has a hand like ace-queen, maybe even now a queen 10, or maybe a 10-9 type hand is possibly in his range. These are hands that'll definitely give us value. And if I was to get check raised here, it would certainly be a difficult spot for me. I think that there is a chance I could lay it down, but I really would be surprised to be check raised here after seeing this line. So I am going to go ahead and put out a bet here. I have showed this to a couple students in the last month or so, and I had one or two of them that would check this back. The reasoning being that they would check this back and call most rivers, or check this back, and if the opponent checks to them on the river, they would bet for value. Now, there's some merit to that type of line, but again, I think that betting here is better because we simply capture more value from those either worse 2-pair hands or worse 1-pair bluff catching hands that are in his range. So I do go ahead and bet here, again about 2/3 pot, and our opponent calls. So when he calls here, I'm immediately thinking, okay, there's just no way. There's just no way he's slow playing some sort of set here or a made straight. If he has a jack here, he has to raise. Ace-jack would have to raise. If he had a set, he would have had to have raised or played this differently at some point. There's just no way he's taking this line with that strong of a hand.